Baron, and it's always an honor to be on with the love of my life. 42 years of marriage, the brilliant, the bold, the beautiful Inez Baron.
Thank you. We're so pleased to be able to welcome you once again to our program. And we're going to begin our program by offering a libation. In our tradition, our cultural tradition, we always want to involve and invoke our ancestors to witness and to be a part of the program that will move forward. So at this point, we're going to offer a libation via a video.
African people, nothing important happens without a libation. And so for this very important presentation, we begin by the pouring of libation. We pour libation first to our first ancestor, to that hidden one who, though hidden, manifests in all things as all things, that God-goddess idea in the universe by any and all names. To our first ancestor, we pour libation. Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the first people on this planet, mothers and fathers of all mankind, flashpoint of the human family. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because they were the ones who first gave birth to the idea of civilization, knew we would need a form of governance, and they nurtured that idea along the Nile until it reached its zenith in Kemet. There they built these gigantic monuments as evidence of that great civilization, and they carved instructions on the walls of temples and tombs for us, so we would never forget. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to our ancestors because over time they put together all the tenets of civilization and they took those ideas and left the continent. They were the people of the first Exodus. They left Africa and went all over the world and peopled the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. We pour libation too to our ancestors because they did not sit on their laurels. They continued to improve, continued to evolve, and at each point of evolution, they again would leave the continent and settle and resettle the planet. They met themselves coming and going. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time, they found themselves the object of a forced exodus when they were kidnapped, shackled, cargoed, shipped out of Africa and enslaved in diasporas around the world. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to the ancestors left at home, the very young, the aged, the infirm, left to reinvent themselves, depleted of us, human resources. But they were enjoined by us in the diasporas, both objects of a global myopia that ruptured the soul of a people as it ravaged a continent. To those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to those ancestors because over time they began to remember who and what they were. Because no matter where they had been dropped off, they still retained bits and pieces of who and what they were. They retained that African core that described them. They began to remember bits and pieces of a song. They began to remember lines from a rhythm. They began to remember dances that they did in ancient times. They began to remember those ancient drum beats that they now beat out on bare skin. And so to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to them because they then began to teach each other. They began to resurrect and reconstruct that history and that culture. They became the new Africans wherever they were. They became the new teachers, preachers, archaeologists, the new singers, dancers, the new drummers, the new Jalil. They reconstructed that history and our culture and became new Africans everywhere. So to those ancestors, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation to those ancestors because they are the ones who passed that information on to us. And so we pour libation to those of you who will watch this presentation, those of you who are the recipients of that pieced together history, of that reconstructed culture. To you, we pour libation. Ashe. Pour libation too to our children and those yet to be born. For they are the ones that you must teach. And you can only teach if you know the history. So to you who are learning the history and are passing on that history, and to our children who are learning that history and will pass that history on to all eternity, but they will call your name in all eternity. To our children we pour libation. Ashe. 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 Ashe.
Asheo. Thank you so much. I want to thank our technician, Jakiru, for the work that he's doing behind the scenes.
Yes.
And once again, you're listening to Operation Power here on Black Power Media Reloaded. We're going to be exciting program. We have an exciting program here for you today. You know, this is August, is Black August, and we've got a special guest, Jalil Muntaqim, and we're going to be able to share his thoughts with us and be able to share his experiences and what it is that's happening in his life right now. But we do want to give you more information about what Operation Power actually is. So we've got another video which explains to you how Operation Power came to be, and we're going to talk about that. It started in 1997 and has moved forward since that time. So we're going to share the video now about how we're going to make revolution using Operation Power.
How we going to make revolution from our houses? How we going to make revolution social distancing? How we going to make revolution away from one another? We have to be able to still get together, still talk, and utilizing the Zoom platform to have this Operation Power meeting is unprecedented.
So that's a little bit of what Operation Power talks about. Black radical politics. We're talking about being able to be Black, be proud, not take down, not conform to the limitations of what a Democratic Party structure talks about. And we've been able to do that in the offices that we've held in New York City council members and New York City State Assembly members, and be able to get the resources and bring them to our community so that our community now sees the benefits of having 3 brand new schools, of having housing affordable to the people who presently live there. We don't have any displacement of our people living in our communities by those developers coming in and moving them out because they're charging rents that the people who presently live there can't afford. But we do understand that with all of this political power and the opportunities that we have through the electoral process, we do understand that there are limitations.
That is not a panacea. We can't vote our way to freedom. It is a tactic. It is a strategy for us to, one, access resources for our people, the fundamental resources, food, shelter, clothing, and then raise their political revolutionary consciousness. I do believe I have a video that K. Rool's going to play, a longer version of explaining more about what Operation Power is all about.
Operation Power stands for people organizing and working for empowerment and respect.
Operation Power is a grassroots social justice organization founded by local community stakeholders, which includes activists, organizers, and leaders who understand that the system as it is currently structured is destroying us and our communities.
The system, the capitalist system, one that promotes human greed over human need, one that promotes profit over people, needs to be dismantled. These local community organizers recognize capitalism needs to be destroyed and replaced with socialism.
Operation Power was founded in 1997 with the understanding that uprooting capitalism needs to begin locally. Operation Power understood that our communities are the perfect vehicle to dismantle this parasitic capitalist system brick by brick, and the economic, political, and cultural institutions and other systems in place in our local community infrastructure. Whether it's the local school board, community board, city council, state assembly, all represents mechanisms to control the destiny of our people.
In 1997, Operation Power launched the campaign Charles Barron for City Council that would lead to over 20 years of radical changes in the East New York community. These changes included over 20,000 units of housing affordable to our community, 3 $88 million schools, over $110 million secured and allocated for community parks, millions secured for library upgrades, and another $42 million for the construction of a new library.
Cultural programs such as the Juneteenth celebration, Kwanzaa programs, and reinterment of Sankofa Park, securing thousands of jobs for local residents.
We've secured political seats that include city council seat, state assembly seat, state committee person, male and female district leader, chair of the local community board members, campaigning and getting a judge from the community elected, county committee seats, block association presidents, tenant presidents, and much more.
And all this was done while being Black radicals. We are Black radicals, which means getting to the root causes of the problems challenging our community. We need to get to the root and not lose ourselves battling the symptoms of this vicious capitalist system, because we know that revolution is the solution.
Operation Power believes in Black power for Black people. Black power is still needed and still relevant. Operation Power believes that Black radicalism is the only position we can afford to take, getting to the root of our problem for revolutionary change. Operation Power believes in community control for Black people as the only way to get to self-determination and liberation.
Operation Power believes that we need to move to a more socialist system, a communal system that doesn't suffocate but liberates. With these beliefs, we take collective action for our self-determination and liberation by being a part of Operation Power.
Welcome to Liberation Saturday.
Thank you so much, Kiru. We also want to highlight the fact that in the presentation that you saw, there were references to several books that are published by people who are part of Operation Power, and we do want to highlight those. The first one is Speaking Truth to Power by Charles Barron. The next is It's Not You, It's Capitalism, and that's by Malika Jabali. And the third is Black Rising, a novel, and that one is by Kevin Barron. You can get all of those by going to Barnes and Nobles and following the information that's there. Well, we're excited about today's program. We've got a special guest, and I believe that he's here in the studio. We're going to ask our technician if he would bring him on so that you can all see. There he is. Okay, Brother Jalil Muntaqim.
Welcome, my brother. It is such an honor to have you on. It's an honor to not only be your comrade in struggle, but a friend. And we
thank. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, assalamu alaikum. Peace, pause, Baragani, Jumbo. It's also an honor to be on your program, my dear brother. You know what I mean? We come from a long legacy of engagement and struggle and organizing in the community. And you represent one of those aspects, one of the major aspects for all that you have achieved, and both of you have achieved in your leadership and also your representing of the community. And so I honor you, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak on your program.
Well, you know, I've always admired you and Brother Sekou Odinga, who will be honoring tomorrow on our WBAI program with his wife, Dekwe. The sacrifice that brothers and sisters have made, this generation doesn't understand the depth and the commitment and what it takes to be a liberating people. You sacrificed your life. You were 18, 19, 47 years as a political prisoner, 47 years.
49 plus, bro. Don't take 2 years off me. I need all that.
Wow. 49 plus.
Almost a half a century.
Come on now. Almost a half a century. So we want you to just tell it like it is. Whatever your heart desires. You know, we're not radio personalities who do interviews. We're comrades. So we want to give you the floor and just say what you want to say and how you want to say it.
I'm grateful for that. You know, I do appreciate it. I have a couple of questions thrown at me so I can answer them. So if you have some ideas, some questions that you want to share with me, or that you want me to try to open up a broader discussion, please feel free to do so. One thing I want people to understand, particularly for today, right? Today is August 7th. And a lot of people don't know what happened August 7th, 1970, when a young man-child, as Comrade George called his brother, Jonathan Jackson, ran into the Marin County Courthouse, weapons in hand, and demanded the release of some comrades, particularly William Christmas and also James McClain, right? And in that initiative of Jonathan, he also was able to, for a moment, secure the freedom of Ruchell McGee. Ruchell McGee was in the courtroom arguing his own petition when Jonathan came in with weapons and handed them to James and to William and asked him, Ruchell, do you want to come? Ruchell immediately, there was no second thought about that, right? He immediately dropped his paper and says, give me one of those, let's go, okay? That's the kind of courage and determination you have to have in organizing our capacity to free ourselves or liberate ourselves from a system of capitalist imperialism, a system of white supremacy. Jonathan the man-child was heroic in his determination, as were many of the members of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, right? What these young people today have no clue, have no understanding of that history or that kind of resistance, that kind of determination, or that kind of love for our people, right? That you're willing to sacrifice your life and your liberty, right? Keep in mind that the Black Panther Party, right, was a youth movement, right? Let's understand that, right? There was no one under the age of 30 who joined the Black Panther Party. These were teenagers and people in their 20s probably given their first job they ever had, right? Who dedicated themselves in the struggle for our people, all right? We have to resurrect that ideal. We have to resurrect that kind of determination, that kind of love in our community that has been destroyed by a system of hate. A system of hate. We are a traumatized people. And let me just share that point for a moment, right? During the course of Black August. And what I mean by that, we are people who've been named by our enemy. And we accepted the name of our enemy, right? So I asked the question, what's a Negro? What's a Negro? Where is Negro land? Right? Where is it? We are people who don't have an identity, right? They named us, they called us Negroes, and we accepted that name. But my understanding, Negro in the word itself is derivative of negra, which means black in Spanish. I'm not Spanish. Okay. And so that indicates for me to a large degree how we have been traumatized by over 400 years of white supremacy. Over 400 years of a system that had dehumanized, demeaned, and degraded and devalued our very existence. All right. So with that understanding, we had to begin the process of decolonizing ourselves, decolonize our minds, decolonize our thinking. Okay. Because we had been a colonized people. All right. So for me, it's important for us to understand that during this course of history, during this course of, for this month, even Black August, right? Necessity for us to go back into study, to study our history, right? To train, to fast, to work out, to read, right? To get into a state of mind where we know that there's a need for us to improve ourselves, right? To not only improve ourselves on the inside, but also improve ourselves in terms of our relationship that we have on the outside with one another, you know. So that is a course of action that I think we need to move towards.
I'm glad you mentioned the identity piece. We were watching a clip of you, and you were talking about how your mother, may she rest in peace, told you at a young age you were African, and she drilled that into you and the importance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. My mom was a student of African dance as a young woman, right? And her instructor told her that she's African, and so she taught us African dance, my sister and I. And in so doing, also told us that we're Africans. Don't let nobody call you a Negro. Don't let nobody call you a colored person. Don't let nobody call you a coon. Don't let nobody call you an N-word, right? Those are fighting words in my household, okay? And that's the way I was raised up, right? You call me an N-word, we going down, okay? Right? I tell people I'm African, right? I come from Africa. My family come from Africa. I can give you even a broader understanding. My great-grandfather was Maroon from Jamaica, right? And my great-grandmother was a creek, Muskogee Creek out of Alabama. All right. They had 23 children.
Wow.
17 survived. My grandfather, 18 survived. My grandfather was number 17, right? My grandfather put in our tradition, our home tradition, back in 1970, 71, Kwanzaa. And every year after that, our family practiced Kwanzaa, right? So we had culture in our family. We had African understanding in our family. That's how we identified ourselves. And that was my POV in moving into the world. So at 16, when I joined the Black Panther Party, right, I came with the ideals. I came with the understanding of who I am. I had my identity, right? And I knew I had a responsibility for my community, right? So at 18, right, I was recruited into the Black Underground, right, which ultimately became known as the Black Liberation Army, all right? At 19, I was captured. And from that point on, from 19 to 68, right, I was in the penal slave system. Now, I call it a slave system. Why do I call it a slave system? Because that's what it is. Right? Keep in mind that this country is a slave nation, right?
That's right.
Often we forget that, right? But this country is a slave nation. Slavery was never abolished in this country. Never abolished.
Right.
In 1863, when they ended chattel slavery of African people, they started penal slavery. Right? Because in the United States, slavery and voluntary servitude will not exist except for those who've been duly convicted of a crime.
Right.
That's right.
All right. So the prison system is a slave system. And then what they do, they created the black codes and vagrancy laws. Now this is important too. These vagrancy laws, because now they reinstituted these vagrancy laws, put people in prison again, right? This orange-haired dictator, right, just signed into law that people are homeless can be arrested and put in prison.
That's right. That's right.
Vagrancy laws. Okay. And so what we find is that we continue to be under the hammer, under the gun, right? Literally under the gun, right? Of the police state, under the gun of oppression, racism, right? And all forms of oppression. And that's why in 2021, we had the International Tribunal. Okay. International Tribunal was held October 22nd to the 25th at the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Education Center. And as a result of the tribunal, the United States was found guilty of 5 charges. 5 charges. The charge was mass incarceration. We know that they mass incarcerate us, right? The majority of the people inside the penal slave system today are black and brown people. All right. Health inequities. We know as a people, we have serious health inequities. The highest level of diabetes, highest level of heart ailments, highest level of kidney disease, highest level of you name it, we got it. Asthma, okay? And much of it is a result of the third issue, environmental racism. We know that many of our communities are found in areas where they're polluted, okay? Like what happened in Michigan, in the water of Michigan, and other places. And as a result of that, lead poisoning, and as a result of that, we have these health ailments. Why do white people live longer than black people in this country? Health inequities, right? State-sanctioned violence against us. They kill us. They get away with it.
That's right.
State-sanctioned violence, right? The police are agents of the state. Okay, and they kill us across this country, right? And lastly, it's political prisoners. This is a political prisoner. Why do they want to recognize the existence of political prisoners? Right? Because to recognize the existence of political prisoners is to recognize this dissent in this country.
Right.
All right? And that's not, they don't want the world to know that people are fighting back. Okay? And then we have political prisoners. So as a result of that, the International Tribunal found the United States guilty of genocide. Because cumulatively, those 5 issues tantamount to genocide against black people. Why should we be surprised?
Right. Brother Jalil, you know, we are thinking about back in the 60s when the COINTEL program was rampant and where they targeted and made up, they infiltrated and they had provocateurs and they made up lies and just sowed seeds of discontent amongst those groups that were fighting against all of those injustices that you talked about: indecent housing, inadequate health care, and a system of education that misinformed our children. And as a part of that battle, we know that the Black Panther Party was foremost in the forefront in fighting against that. And then in 1998, you were one of the co-founders of the Jericho movement to free political prisoners. So perhaps talk to us a little bit about that. You did mention it already, the political prisoners, but you're fighting to have the acknowledgement that, yes, we have political prisoners and prisoners of war here in the United States. We want to bring that awareness, and we want to fight for their release and for amnesty. So speak to us a little bit about the Jericho movement.
Thank you, sis, for bringing that issue up. Back in 1998, actually back in 1996, right? The Jericho, there was a called Jericho March, and it was first presented by the Republic of New Africa. Every year they used to go to the White House and walk around the White House, right, calling for the release of our political prisoners. And they called it Jericho. Why? Because it comes out the Bible where it says Jericho, you march around the Jericho with a loud clamor and the walls come tumbling down, okay? And that is our position, right? If we organize ourselves to the extent that we need to, right, and make that loud clamor, the walls of imprisonment will come down. And so they stopped doing it in 1996, and I contacted my dear beloved sister, Sophia Asi Bukhari, Presente, and also my dear brother, Baba Herman Ferguson. Right, and there's a whole story behind each of those giants that people don't know about. Right, we have heroes walking amongst us, and people don't even understand who they are. Right, as is yourself. Okay, and so in 1996, I said, let's restart the Jericho movement. They came to visit me. I was in the Eastern Napanock prison. They came to visit me. And they said, "But Jalil, we can do it, but not in the time frame that you want it done." Right. So in 1998, we had the National March to Washington to reestablish the Jericho March in Washington. 6,000 activists from across the country came to Washington, D.C., right, in support of that call for action by myself, Sister Sophia, and my dear brother Herman. Yeah, Herman. Okay, senior moment, Herman Ferguson. Okay, and as a result, like I said, 6,000 came. Mobilized, we said we have to continue, and that began the development and building of the National Jericho movement. Jericho has been in existence over 25 years now. It is the premier organization and support of political prisoners in this country. Right? But not only support political prisoners in this country, we support political prisoners around the world. Yes. Right? It was instrumental in assisting, for instance, the Venezuelan political prisoners, Saba. From being released. As a matter of fact, I had to go to Venezuela and hang out with the brothers and sisters over there, right, and learn more about his situation, and came back and began to really organize in support of him, and he was released from prison. Wow. He had been kidnapped by the United States government, right, as a result of the work, their work, right, trying to avert the sanctions that were put on Venezuela by this government, right? And as a result of that, they arrested him in Cape Verde, I think Cape Verde Islands, and put him in metropolitan jail down in Florida. And we worked for his release, and we got his release. We worked for the release of Mutulu Shakur. We got his release. We worked for the release of Maroon. We got his release. We worked for the release of Sunyata, and worked for the release of Leonard Peltier. And we continue to work for the release of our comrades and have them released from prison. It was Jericho that got me out, right? And as well as you know, Charles, with an effort that you put into that, right, in getting me out, right? And so we have to put in the work in order to free our political prisoners. So Jericho was also instrumental in helping organize the International Tribunal as well. And so, for those who don't know, please go to the Jericho movement.com and get involved with the Jericho movement. Also, go to spiritofmandela.org and learn about Spirit of Mandela and the work that we're doing, because we moved to what we call the People's Senate, where based upon the decision of international jurors finding the United States guilty of genocide against Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, we decided it's necessary for us to move ourselves out of harm, to get out of harm's way, right? And we have to create alternative systems of governing, because this government is not working for us, it has not worked for us, and it will not work in our best interest. It has not and will not, okay? The only time we get anything done for our better benefit is when we fight for it, all right? They ain't giving us nothing, okay? And so therefore, it is time for us to dissolve this relationship, right? This unhealthy relationship, this genocidal relationship that they have with this government. Keep in mind, this government's foundation is based upon genocide. So we should not be surprised that they support genocide. But the genocidal annihilation of the indigenous people of this country, right, as well as the enslavement of African people. This is their modus of operandi. And so when you talk about COINTELPRO, right, as an example, right, understand COINTELPRO is the means from which they fight and destroy movements, right, preserve the system of white supremacy, preserve the system of capitalism, okay? And one of their motive operation is divide and conquer.
True.
That's right.
We want to make sure that people understand what you're saying in terms of we've got to organize, we have got to fight, we've got to continue to offer that resistance. And when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. So we can't
fight, we win.
That's right. Can't be dissuaded to think that this is something that we can't achieve and that we won't be able to gain that. Because as you've already highlighted, we've already made great inroads in getting people released and having that coordinated effort of other defense committees for other brothers and sisters that are political prisoners and prisoners of war. So we want to get that ingrained in people's minds. When we fight, we win.
We win.
You know what? Also, I one of the things that I admired so much about you, I visited you when you were incarcerated. I visited Mutulu, and I visited Herman Bell. There was something common in all. None of you said, "How are you going to get me out?" All of our conversations was, "Hey, we need to do a Senate. We need to do." And Mutulu was all saying, we need a commission, you know.
Yeah, commission for reconciliation.
Reconciliation, you know. Never did you say, look, what y'all doing to get me out? Come on, man, I'm tired of being in here. And so I said, man, I admired that so much because y'all were constantly, and while y'all were in, y'all were helping the other brothers.
Right.
And organizing in, just like George Jackson did when he was in. So it's just like, that kind of commitment, that kind of courage, because you're in minimum security, we're in maximum security. And when we talk about political prisoners, the political prisoners that we identify in prisoners of war are those who are resistant and in for their political resistance. But every person in prison is a political prisoner of colonial capitalism. Because if it wasn't for this capitalist system, the brothers and sisters who are not consciously fighting back wouldn't even be incarcerated.
That's a good point you made, but it's important for us to make a distinction, right, from those who are politicized prisoners and political prisoners, prisoners of war. Right, our social prisoners, of course, by virtue of the system itself. Right, we consider that the act of them being incarcerated was political. The court system and how it functions, the policing of our communities, all that is decisions made to suppress our very existence, and therefore, by virtue of that, they are political. They can be considered political prisoners, but they're not conscious of being political prisoners, and that's the detriment. That's the problem. Okay, so yes, while we was inside, many of us, when they destroyed the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, many of us who were inside. Who was inside, we continued to organize. Right, they changed the terrain, but the fight remained the same. Okay, and so we continued to fight and organize while we was inside. And in so doing, sometimes I walk down the streets, in particular in New York City and so forth, I'll run into a brother who come up to me, hey, Jalil, man, hey, glad to see you out, man. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what I'd be. I don't know what I'd be doing, right? I say, and they thank me, you know, for establishing Black study classes, poetry class, sociology classes, and organizing in the prison system itself. I think I organized maybe 5 or 6 different strikes in different prisons. They moved me out from different places as a result of my organizing inside the prison. You know, sit down strikes. When they beating us up in the middle of the yard, I said, no, we ain't going outside. We're not going back inside. We staying right here in this yard and we deal with this situation. You know, so it is those kinds of situations inside prisons that compels us, those who are conscious, to get engaged, to be involved, and to organize. All right. Again, our goal and objective now, I gotta put this out here. July 4th, 2026. We are organizing a national mobilization opposing genocides to be held in Atlanta, Georgia. Right? If you don't know about it, get on it. The reason why is because 2026 is the 250th year of the existence of this country, right? They could be celebrating the 250th year of the existence of this entity, this corporate entity that they call United States. And so what we're going to do, we are going to organize a national demonstration, right, mobilization, opposing genocides, right? Our genocides and genocides around the world that this country is either supports or direct impact in the annihilation and diminishing of the human rights of other peoples, particularly peoples of color around the world. You know, one thing we got to understand that this system that we are living under is in fact a white supremacist system, right? It's been in existence over 400, 500 years from the 1493 papal bull of the Catholic Church, right? Who instigated this form of white supremacy and colonialism with that papal bull from Pope Alexander VI. Okay, so we don't know that history, and they ain't gonna teach us in school. Matter of fact, they don't even want you to be woke. You know, they trying to end wokeness, okay, because they don't want the world to know that we understand who we are dealing with, the savagery and barbarity of these people, and what they are willing to engage in. As for example, what happened in the Iraq War, they killed 1 million people, 1 million people within 6 months on a lie. And they knew it was a lie. How we know it was a lie? Colin Powell went to the United Nations and told them he was duped.
That's right.
They knew that they had no weapons of mass destruction. It was oil wars. The corporation wanted the oil out of Iraq and Iran. All right? All right? Kill over 1 million people. Right? Let's also understand this here. Right? The crack epidemic in our community. Right? Who did that? The CIA. CIA brought that drugs in the community over the what is it called, the Contragate, right? Right. Right. They brought that, and he make movies about it, Highway Rick and etc. Right. Right. What is that? That's chemical warfare. That's chemical warfare on our community, and we lost 2 generations of our people as a result of that chemical warfare on our community. Right. So we know what they're capable of doing and what they're willing to do and what they have done. And that's another reason why we have to remove ourselves from this system of capitalism, this system of white supremacy, because it does not do us any good, right? Only does us harm, okay? And so that's another aspect of our necessity to engage in decolonizing our mind, decolonizing our thinking, right? And separating ourselves from a system of white supremacy and capitalist imperialism, period.
What would you say to the youth? A lot of young people are looking at all kinds of directions to go in. You know, what happens ultimately? What do we want to deal with ultimately here? So what would your message be to young people?
Join an organization. Join an organization. Don't sit on the sidelines. You can't afford to, right? You got these jump out cops coming out there after y'all, right? Right? Get organized. If you're in a street tribe, if you're in a street organization, become politicized, right? Keep in mind that some of our street organizations back in my days, like the Slawsons and the Bandits, and for instance, Darul bin Wahab, he was named Torch in the games when he was a young kid, right? I was in a gang called the Conservatives when I was 12 or 13 years old, right? Before I made that transition, right? And so this Bunchy Carter was the head of the Slawsons before he transitioned, became the head of the Los Angeles chapter of the Black Panther Party. So you can't, Larry Hoover, as another example, right? He transitioned while he was in prison and became politicized, and then told his people in the streets to change their name, right? And also tried to develop a means for which they can become more engaging in the community. And that's what's important, right? They have to be re-educated, okay? So we need to reestablish our liberation schools in our communities. We need to get the church, right, has to become more politicized, okay? Back in the days, the church supported the Black Panther Party.
Yes.
You used to have breakfast programs in the churches.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Food giveaways are coming out of the churches, right? Where's the church now? A foundation in our community has been compromised to a point of capitulation. Compromised to a point where they are essentially become almost enemies of the people. You know, we have to work on that.
Fred Hampton, 21
years of age, brilliant.
And I think they having a memorial for Cha Cha Jimenez, who was also ahead of the Young Lords, and him and Fred Hampton got together. So talk about those two.
Well, what's important to know about Fred Hampton is his brilliance, right? And not only his brilliance, but his courage, right? He would walk into a place of enemies, right? Like the Patriot Party, who he created the Patriot Party, who was Appalachian white people, right? Racist. Walked into their business and said, listen, y'all got to get your heads right, because we're all in the struggle together. He went to the Puerto Ricans and told them basically the same thing, right? And he created what was called, right, the Rainbow Coalition. Rainbow Coalition. Before Jesse Jackson stole the name, right? Rainbow Coalition was an organization of the Patriot Front, Young Lords, and the Black Panther Party united and organizing in Chicago, right? That's why he became a threat. Okay, and they had to murder him. Jimmy he understood what was going on with the Black Panther Party and changed his whole operations, because originally there was a gang.
That's right.
There was a Puerto Rican gang, and they changed their politics. They got into politics and learned how they can better improve the conditions of their community, right? Following the lead of the Black Panther Party. All right. AIM organization is another group, right? Supported the Black Panther Party. The Brown Berets, another group, right? Mexicans who supported and followed the lead of the Black Panther Party. Iwakin, Asian, Chinese, right? Began to organize and support the manner in which it was the Black Panther Party. All right. So this brilliance of young people, right? We need to get them back engaged again. Yes, Norman. We have to agitate, educate, and organize. Not only organize, but then mobilize. Because you got to add the mobilize on there, brother. So we got to get people moving. All right. That's the golden objective. All right. So when we talk about our comrades, particularly here in this month, the month of Black August, where we have to reflect on. Now, let me tell you something about Black August. It's important for us to understand, right? Black August came out of the prison system.
That's right.
Right? Came out of prison system out of California. Now it's both not only national, but it's an international month of reflection of struggle, okay? By the virtue of the work that was being done by the brothers inside, okay? Black Guerrilla Family, right? Organization came out of the California prison system. Right? Why they come out of the prison system? Because Nazi guards and the Aryan Brotherhood was killing Black prisoners inside the prison system in California. They had to defend themselves. They had to organize to defend themselves, and they organized what they called the Black Guerrilla Family. Okay. After Comrade George was assassinated, it became the leadership of the Black Guerrilla Family came under the leadership of Jeffrey Katari Golden, right? And he was murdered in 1979. And as a result of his death, right, the brothers inside decided it was necessary to honor our comrades. The comrade of Jonathan Jackson, who was murdered on August 7th, 1970. The honor of Comrade George Jackson, who was murdered on August 21st, 1971. The honoring of Jeffrey Golden, Katari, who was murdered in 1979, right, in the prison system, okay? Hit his head on the concrete, and they let him bleed out, right, in the San Quentin jail yard, in the AC, what we call the adjustment center, was a supermax inside the institution. Okay, I was there. I know what it was like being in the AC, because I spent time in the AC. In fact, I had Rochelle McGee on one side of me. I had Charlie Manson on the other side of me. And San Quentin 6, and San Quentin 6 on San Galley with me. Geronimo Pratt was upstairs along with Russell Little and Billy Harris, who was from the SLA, the Sudanese Liberation Army. Okay. These are the people that we had inside the AC at that time.
You was in there with Jalil Muntaqim too, Rap Brown, right?
Oh, I was in, but that was in New York.
New York,
right? And it was Imam Jamil Al-Amin, who introduced me to the Islam. Him and Max Sanford. Max Sanford, Muhammad Ahmed. Max Sanford was the leader of RAM, Revolutionary Action Movement. Okay, which Barbara Herman Ferguson had been a member of back in his days. You see, so you see this coalescence of revolutionaries and understanding the task that we have before us, right? And the capacity for us to build unity, right? Unity and understanding of that we're all in this struggle together. So in terms of the youth, as you ask, right? Have the youth join an organization, become involved, okay? When I was in high school, I started the first black student union in my high school. There was no black student union when I was growing up, right? I helped organize the black student union and had black ethnic studies in our high school, okay? And so we need to get the students to do that. Establish a black ethnic group, ethnic studies, right? Black studies, a BSU, right? In your high school and in your school. Get involved, get engaged. Know that we're under severe threat with this system.
Jalil, two things, and I know we got about 10 minutes left, but two things. I know these are heavy questions, but one, the importance of ideology, theory, guide, and practice, number one. And number two, the importance of us supporting, studying, celebrating, honoring the Sahel Revolution in West Africa and the importance of the liberation of Africa under socialism to the liberation of all of us in the African diaspora.
Well, I'm gonna have to push back a little bit on that, Charles. Right? The question of the liberation of Africa. Right? It's important for people to understand that we are in the belly of the beast. All right? We are in the head of the octopus. Okay. The world is waiting on us. Why? Because we're dealing with the issue. Because we are in the belly of the beast. Right? So what happens in Africa, yes, it's extremely important that we support Africa and the liberation of Africa in terms of our Pan-Africanist understanding of our struggle. But ultimately for the world, it's on us.
Correct.
Those who are in the belly of the beast, those who are in the head of the octopus. Okay. Understand that we're living in an empire, right? And history informs us that empires are not dismantled from outside forces, from external forces. Empires are dismantled when the people inside the empire say no more, we're done. It's over. Okay. So let's understand that, right? And also understand we're gonna reap the brunt of fascist repression. So I'm telling the world, y'all gotta come to us. You need to support us if you want to be free, right? I tell the world, I went to Greece, I went to Venezuela, and I told both of them, you're not gonna be free until black people are free. Period. Your world will not be free until black people are free. Look anywhere in the world. I don't care if you go to New Zealand, Australia, Germany, France, Italy, South Africa, Brazil, black people are downtrodden. All over the world.
Absolutely. Okay. Marcus Garvey showed that in his travels, but I still think that link.
There is a link, and the link is this here.
Our stuff in the belly of the beast, no question about it. But the link to what's happening in Sahel, because I remember in the 60s, when we supported, remember African Liberation Day was the supporting of armed struggle in Africa, you know, when Mozambique and Ghana and SWAPO and all those movements, we linked together, although we have the major responsibility in the belly of the beast, no question.
Absolutely.
That link, I think, is very important.
Oh, definitely. Our Pan-Africanists, listen, in my opinion, there's no greater Pan-Africanist than there was with Marcus Garvey.
That's right.
Okay. And Patrice Lumumba. Okay. And my understanding of them and what they practice was that is the love of African people and being African.
That's right.
All right. Marcus Garvey said, what? Africa for Africans.
Those at home and those abroad.
Those at home and those abroad. Right?
Correct.
And so that means that we here have to become Africans in our thinking and our mentality.
That's right.
Okay, so that's part of the process, right? But also know that we have a responsibility in as much as supporting them, right? We have a responsibility to ourselves to survive this genocidal onslaught that's coming toward us, right? That we have been engaged in. And so when we look at the Sahel and Brother Ibrahim Traoré, right? We can laud him as being a champion of African, a champion of Africanness, right? Right. As was Alhaji Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X.
That's right.
Okay. And so for me, again, you know, yes, we support them, what's going on over there. We want to ensure that this system does not do what they did to Patrice Lumumba, to Ibrahim Traoré.
There you go.
Okay. And how do we do that? We organize ourselves in here.
Yeah, in the belly of the beast.
In the belly of the beast.
That's right.
Right? Because when we're strong, they're going to be strong.
That's right.
Okay? But for long as we're weak, right, they got a harder struggle. A more difficult struggle.
That's right. We got a few minutes left. I got to have you come back. There's so much knowledge we want to talk to you about your book next time. But connect culture to our liberation. You know, Bob Marley's song, I saw somebody in the chat say, stand up, fight for your rights, stand up and fight. There's so much in our music. There's a lot of messages that we got to bring into the music and not some of the nonsense that we are listening to now, but message music of liberation. Talk about culture and liberation.
Before I became a Black Panther Party member, I was a member of US organization, right?
Oh, okay.
All right, a culture nationalist, right? When I was 15 years old, my mom brought me my first conga drums for my birthday, right? So we kept the culture in the house, okay? Yeah, I was a part of a group called the Afro Brotherhood, and we used to go around and play the congas for different events and things of that nature, all right? So I understand culture. Culture is spiritual, right? Culture connects us to a people and to an ancestry, right? Culture, it identifies who we are, all right? So one of the things, I'm giving you an example, right? I talked about my great-grandfather being maroon, okay? And he came to Georgia, got into trouble. This story that my grandmother came and see me right before I got parole from San Quentin. She said, listen, I ain't gonna see you again, but I'm gonna tell you why you are the way that you are. I said, okay, all right, Grandma, tell me why I am. And she came with her son, my Uncle Joe. I looked at Uncle Joe said, shut up, listen to your grandma. I said, okay, cool. So Grandma told me, said, you know what a maroon is? I said, yeah, Grandma, I know what a maroon is. Well, your great-grandfather was a maroon. He came from Jamaica, got in trouble in Georgia, had to leave Georgia, went to Alabama, got in trouble in Alabama, had to leave to Alabama with his wife, right, at the time. My great-grandmother, Cherokee, right? And then moved, I'm not Cherokee, a Creek, and then moved to Louisiana. When he got to Louisiana, right, he says, I'm at the bottom. I don't have nothing. I'm starting all over again. I'm changing my name to Bottom. Okay. So my last name is Bottom. My birth name is Bottom. I ain't named after no slave master. Okay. I ain't named after no slave. I don't have that tag on me. Okay. So part of the process of changing, and so my grandma said, here you are going around in the country, getting into trouble and changing your name. You just like your great-grandfather. Okay. That's my link. Okay. That's how she made that connection. Okay, so part of the process in terms of our culture, we have to re-identify ourselves as Africans. We have to get rid of the slave names, right? We got to get rid of the slave mentality because that slave name holds us, right, to a history of enslavement. Okay, so we want to free yourself, change your name. That's one of the processes.
That's right.
Right, and it's cultural. Okay. Because it begins to develop some identity of who we are. Right. Our culture has to be liberatory. It has to be freedom directed, freedom guided. Okay. If it is not that, if that builds towards culture, then it builds towards our own decimation, right? Our own enslavement. Yes, you're absolutely right, Val. Right. We got to remember our comrades and honor them, right? During Black August. Right? Sekou, Bilal, Sunni Ali, Russell Moon Schultz, Seth Hayes, Batulu Shakur, Geronimo Jijaja, all of our comrades who passed as a result of them engagement in this struggle. Remember them during the month of Black August. All right? That's also culture. Black August is part of this new culture of resistance. Okay? So culture is not static, it's dynamic. All right? And we have to be in the process of being able to make those kind of transitional changes and understanding who we are as a people. Right, and also in our relationship to the continent itself and what we need to build here in this country. One thing I want to make before we leave, right? Sure. I talked about who's a Negro, what's a Negro, and what's Negro land, right? We've been in this country over 400 years, right? The majority of us still live in the Black Belt South, right? That is our ancestral homeland, Black Belt South, right? In this territory we call Turtle Island. Right, and we have an obligation to free our ancestral homeland, right? To return to our ancestral homeland and free the land, okay? Build our own nation, all right? This country has to be balkanized. I'm saying that out loud. This country is done. It's done. It cannot exist as it has been, okay? Because it has existed on our detriment, to our detriment, all right? So when we become woke, when we come realizing who we are as a people, not only in this country, but on this planet, what we have given to the people of this planet, and I don't want to go back too far, right? But we also know that the populating of this world come out of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's keep it at the forefront of our minds. Who are we? We populated this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's who we are. That's why they fear us.
That's right.
Right? That's why they fear us. Because they know who we are. They know what they stole from us. They know what they took our minds from us. They know if we restore that, who we will be.
Mm-hmm.
They fear it. They're operating out of fear, out of genetic fear. And I'm gonna say that out loud too.
And you know,
you have the recessive gene, we have the dominant gene, and they know it, and they're scared of it. Period.
And you mentioned a lot of those groups, especially the indigenous people, that they have nerve to have on reservations, indigenous people's reservations. This is a land for African and indigenous people. Were here first before.
Absolutely. 10,000 years we had African people here, traversing this country. We are the indigenous of this country, along with what we call the indigenous. We are also indigenous of this country.
So that is good.
And we don't know that history. We don't know that culture. They took that away from us. That's what we have to restore.
How can people get your book? We are our own liberators.
They can go to www.blackdragonmme.com. Please get the book. September 3rd, I'm starting a national book club where we're going to study the book from cover to cover. All right? From cover to cover, we're going to study the book. A national book club starting on September 3rd. And if you got the book, you want to get involved, because we're going to be sending out flyers in a minute, right, for people to get engaged. We're going to do a national book study on this particular this particular book.
And how can people get in touch with you for further information about the July 4th event that you mentioned, kind of in Atlanta, Georgia, July 4th, 2026?
Go to spiritofmandela.org. Spiritofmandela.org. They can go there, or they can contact me. Okay. You can contact me through Jalil Muntaqim Gmail. Right. Jalil.Muntaqim Gmail. Okay. To get involved. All right.
Great.
It's imperative that we organize at this point in time, right? Because we are under genocidal threat. Let's make no doubt about that. They have no misunderstanding about that. All right. This guy he's just the dictator. He just signed into law that people who are vagrant and homeless can be sent to prison, be sent to jail. They're building concentration camps on the southern border, right? And when they move out, all the people they go and move out, right, through those concentration camps, you think they're going to mothball those camps? You think they're just going to let them deteriorate? Hell to the no. They got plans for us.
Yeah.
And we got plans for them too. Our liberation.
That's working.
Well, thank you so much, Brother
you.
Jalil, for being our guest this evening. We've run out of time, but y'all make sure you're tuning in again to Operation Power. We had a powerful guest today.
Yes.
Jewels of information and wisdom.
So
we want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for that. And we're going to continue fighting to free them all.
Free them all.
Every last one.
That's right. What's the call? Free them all. That's a fact. All right.
Thank you.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Wa alaikum salam.